Debra Morrison, a 42-year financial expert. Welcome to the We Can Do It Women movement, where women 50 and wiser step into the spotlight and make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. I'm your host, Debra Morrison, a wealth building expert and champion for extraordinary women just like you. For over 47 years, I've helped women secure their financial futures, and now I'm on a mission to ignite a revolution. Yep, showing the world that at 50, 60, 70, and beyond, some of us might be a nickel slower, but we're all just getting started. And our esteemed guest today comes to us from Washington, D.C., Maria Leonard Olsen. She's a civil litigation attorney who's practiced at major Washington law firms and currently litigates at the Pell's Law Firm, excuse me. You're a seven-time author with an eighth book coming in November, a widely published journalist, a two-time TEDx speaker, and a public speaker on wellness. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
Wow, you have such a resume and a rich background, and I want to get right into it so that our folks can get to know you a nickel better. You have, as I say, you're a prolific writer, and I applaud you on that. You have 50 after 50, reframing the next chapter of your life. You've been a podcaster, becoming your best version, a journalist published in ARPS, The Ethel, The Midst. QL Life, I probably should have asked you that, and Crunchy Tales, frequent public speaker on wellness issues. But let's just ratchet back and go. You didn't come out of the womb like this. So you
Uh,
a very challenging upbringing. Why don't you tell us where you're born and how that upbringing shaped who you have become, the woman you've become?
sure. I was born in Washington, D.C., to an immigrant mother from the Philippines and an American father. My father was an alcoholic. It was a violent childhood. Sexual abuse is also part of my story, and I pretended that didn't happen for many years. But now I spoke at the National March to End Rape Culture. I've been very loud about it now because the secret kept me sick and led to my own alcoholism and rehab. And so now I help women because it's not their fault. And many of us are shrouded in shame until we can overcome this. It's a very difficult thing. So my father also assaulted my mother and was arrested, and I didn't know anyone whose father had been arrested for beating up their mother. And yet, I think because he was white and it was the 1960s, he got custody of my brother and me. So we grew up in an alcoholic home without a mother and made our way. I escaped through books, which was at that time a really helpful thing for my academics, and was an excellent student, went to a great college, a top 10 law school, worked at the largest law firm, one of the largest law firms in DC, and was a political appointee in the Clinton Justice Department. Then I took 15 years off to raise my children. I know that that was a privilege. And then when they became teenagers and pushed me back, didn't want me so involved in their life, I felt rudderless and I dove far into drinking. My then husband tried to get me help. I went to five rehabs because I was a self-reliant person, I thought, and didn't want the help from the rehabs until the fifth one. And at the fifth one, he told me not to come home. So we divorced and I got sober. I became an empty nester and was living alone for the first time in my life at age 50 and had to start over. So I took another state bar exam, started practicing law again and started writing about my experience as first to help me process what was happening in my life and then to help others. And one of the TEDx talks that you mentioned is called Turning Life's Challenges into a Force for Good. Because I believe women, especially those of us who've had life experience, like your listeners, have a lot to share.
Absolutely.
And at the very least, to help other people feel that they're not so alone in their life challenges. So, as a gift to myself for my 50th year, I tried 50 new things in my 50th year to determine how I wanted to live the next chapter of my life. And that book became an Amazon bestseller. It led to lots of speaking engagements. I started my podcast based off of that book. And then now I'm 62, and I did 60 new things in my 60th year, also as writing a new chapter. That book hasn't been published yet because I have a book on DNA test surprises coming out that I really
Ah,
want to
yes.
push before I turn to the next book.
Wow.
So I guess that's a long answer and an abbreviated version of what my journey has been so far.
Well, it's nothing short of remarkable, and the strides you've made, Maria, have been admirable for sure. A very interesting side note is, of course, we're talking about you're a biracial woman. Your mom was Filipino and your dad was white, and your parents were legally barred from marrying in the state of Maryland in the early 60s.
That's
Wow.
true. Yeah,
Wow.
until 1967, it was illegal in 16 states. And when I told my children that, they didn't believe me. They
I'm sure.
had to look it up.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that wasn't that long ago.
Not at all. Not at all. We can remember it. And so the aspect of all of this, the abuse, the living within, in the presence of violence and it's a difficult thing, it's kind of like you're you're always on alert, right?
Yeah,
And,
true.
and that is something that if you haven't been there, it's kind of hard to fathom. And yet, this really shaped you, Maria, in order for you to come full fledged and be a volunteer. Yes, you were served as U.S. Department of Justice during Clinton administration, special counsel, the Assistant Attorney General. These kinds of appointments and your extensive volunteer work, your nonprofit board service, and so forth has shaped your whole awareness, if you will, of DEI, has it not?
Yes, that's absolutely true. And in my tenure as a political appointee, I helped to develop the very first government-wide pro bono program for government lawyers. And I'm really proud of that achievement, and it still is in place today.
Wow, wow. So the TEDx talk, you have two TEDx talks, one turning life challenges into force for good, and the other is DNA test surprises. Talk to us about that.
Okay, yes. So I was speaking at a mixed race conference, and 23andMe was the corporate sponsor. And so they gave free tests to all the speakers. I didn't have any reason to do a DNA test and probably never would have if it hadn't been free.
Okay.
So I spit in the tube, sent it off. And for your listeners who don't know this, the Philippines is the most Catholic country in the world. And my father was an Irish English American Catholic. I went to Catholic school from first grade through Jesuit college, raised both my kids Catholic, and was a Eucharistic minister. It was a huge part of my life. So when I received the DNA test results, they indicated that I am half Ashkenazi Jew. I didn't even know very many Jewish people. And so my dad, who raised me, was dead at this point, and I called his sister and asked if we had any Jewish ancestry. She said, "No, of course not. You've read our ancestry through our cousin Charlie." Then I went to visit my mom, and I said, "Mom, I did a DNA test." And she said, "Oh, those things aren't very accurate." And I said, "Mom, did you forget that I'm a lawyer who helped get a man off of death row based on DNA test results?" And she
Gosh.
burst into tears and she refused to talk about it. And I said, "Mom, sit down. I get 5 minutes and then we never have to talk about this again. Who is my father?" She said, "I don't know his name. It was a one night thing. I don't know. I don't know." And so I said, "Okay, Mom, I will find him with or without your help. Is there any detail you can give me?" And
Yes.
all she could give me was that it happened in Seattle, Washington, when was visiting her cousin who was in university there.
Okay.
So I delved into ancestry detective mode, and it took me a year, but I found my biological father living in San Diego, and he had no other children. He was an actor I had watched on the big and small screens
Uh,
in many shows like Columbo, Matlock, Spartacus, Norma Ray. And we developed a relationship. And I found that I had so much more in common with him than I did my dad who raised me. And we had a beautiful relationship. He died last year, but I'm so grateful that I found him. And
Oh,
he was so grateful to find me. In fact, I represented him in a lawsuit and won him a big judgment. So it was helpful both ways. And he was really proud of me. And now I have written a book, will be published by Bloomsbury this year, about DNA test surprises because so many people take these tests thinking they'll be a fun gift. They go on sale around holidays. And misattributed parentage affects, so by some estimates, 30% of the world population has been fathered by someone who they don't realize is their biological father.
oh my
And
God.
many people find relatives they don't know about. People, poor college kids who donated sperm now have found they have 30 children, and these kids have found them and want to meet them. So it is wreaking havoc on many families. And so my book outlines the many consequences, potential consequences of taking a DNA test, which also include privacy concerns. People know about hacking. It includes insurance concerns because it's currently legal for life insurance and long-term health care insurance companies to deny you coverage based on DNA tests. So, for instance, I'm at higher risk of having the breast cancer gene and because I'm Ashkenazi
Right.
Jew, half. And if I had tested positive for that gene, a life insurance company is permitted by law to deny me coverage or to hike my rate way up. So that eventually is likely to change, but it takes the law a lot of time to catch up to scientific advances until some legislator has something horrible happen to him
Yes,
or
of
their
course.
family.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now that's so curious, Maria, because of course the current insurance that we're fighting to have sustained is accepting people with. So there's the problem. Pre-existing condition. You don't have a pre-existing condition. You have an existing condition from the birth canal, and yet
Yes.
they're somehow denying you. That is just stupid. I'm just.
Yeah, the other thing people don't realize is because many of the companies cooperate with law enforcement, that I now am a genetic informant on anyone in my bloodline who commits a crime for which DNA evidence is relevant.
Oh my gosh.
So you
Wow.
never know what's going to happen if you're in the system. And arguably, your DNA is your most personal of information.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Wow. Amazing. So, I mean, I got to think that when your dad got that call from you or however you informed him, I mean, he must have been gobsmacked, right?
He was. And the funniest thing he said to me was, okay, I have one question to ask you before I can determine if we can have a relationship. I said, okay, thinking it would be something really deep. He said, did you vote for Trump? And I said, no. And he said, oh, thank God. Okay, then
All right. We can meet
we
for
can
lunch
be,
then. Well, I'll meet for
yeah.
dinner. Let's meet for dinner.
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor and he really brought a lot of joy to my life, and I'm grateful.
Oh, I'm grateful for you. Wow, what a turn of events. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
most people don't have good DNA test discoveries. For most people, it involves a family secret. That's a secret for a reason. And so I did a DNA test TEDx talk also about what you should watch out for and where to get help if you've uncovered a secret that upended your identity.
yes, exactly. Well, it's powerful for sure. I also read that a little known fact that you were a foster mother for 8 newborn babies who were awaiting adoption. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you manage that? Good grief, that's a lot
Yeah.
of responsibility.
Yes, well, I didn't have them at the same time, one at a
Right?
time, and they were newborns. And in the state of Maryland, the birth mother has, I think it's 8 or it might be 12 weeks to determine whether they're going to take the baby back. So to save heartache on the part of adoptive parents, there are people like me who will take the baby until the time has expired for the mother to change her mind.
Good.
So, I mean, one of the babies I had was only 5 pounds.
Oh my.
And my gosh, one of the reasons I did it, and I was in my 40s at the time, was because I wanted my children to know how lucky they were and to help and to do some real hands-on volunteer work.
Mm, mm.
And my daughter now is becoming a social worker. And I believe that part of that reason is because of the things that happened in her childhood, like caring for these newborns and learning about the families that were giving up the babies and were taking the babies. I still have a relationship with one of the children, and I'm grateful for that. But yes, there are so many children who need fostering before they find their permanent placement. I also foster dogs, so
Wow. Wow. Well, you're a mother in so many respects, and I applaud you. This whole recovery, and you had, tried, and of course, every time someone uses the word try, I know that that's it's a symbol for failure. Oh, we tried to finish the race, and so on. So you tried, and then, finally you got to the 12-step recovery program, which basically, as you say, saved you, and now you use the Al-Anon principles to support. Your relationships with, whomever in your sphere needs it. You also pursued trauma focused therapy, which is impressive. Trauma rehab and EMDR. And of course, we know about EMDR. Well, I know about EMDR. Tell our audience about EMDR, obviously.
yeah, I had to try a lot of things. I was in debilitating depression
Yeah.
for two periods of my life. And for me, I had to take a multi-pronged approach. And EMDR involves typically the therapist will hold a stationary object and then move it, and it activates both sides of your brain and your
Uh,
vision, and it's almost hypnotic. And
yeah.
it brings out deeply embedded memories, or at least it did for me, that I was able to acknowledge and process with a skilled therapist. And I have to warn you that not all therapists who do MDR are good at it, because I had
I'm with
one that
you.
was terrible and I had one that was excellent. So it's just one more modality to get to root causes of depression and to help trauma survivors as well. So it's just one type. I'm a big fan of cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy as ways to change the story in your head and have
Yeah.
tools to reframe different things that are going on in your brain.
And you talk about this in your TEDx, shifting from self-hatred to self-acceptance. And you talk about an earlier uh, uh, life that was marked by perfectionism. A few of us
Yeah.
have had that and fought that, and some of us still do fight that, and self-loathing with your current focus on self-compassion and intentional self-care. Boy, this is so powerful because this is not a dress rehearsal, right? It's just not a dress rehearsal. So you reframe negative self-talk. I'm all about that, setting boundaries, and you cultivate gratitude. I commend you. You've really approached some negatives in your life over years and decades and so forth, and really transformed them to one, set your own life on a very, very powerful trajectory, and those your kids and those whom you influence, which is a lot of people. I'm
Thank you.
impressed. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
So you have a whole central message that we can't avoid hardship, yet we can choose to transform our challenges into a catalyst for growth, connection, and contribution. And you invite everyone to examine their own difficult experiences and how we can use those in one of your titles as a force for good, of course. So talk to us about the 50 and 50 and the 60 and 60. I mean, that is so clever. I'm eager to look at the book in November that's coming out.
Thanks. Well, I think for all of us that if we stop learning, we stop growing. And
Right.
so I'm always seeking new ways to expand my comfort zone and to just keep my brain vital by increasing my learning. So the 50 things I did in my 50th year were divided into seven categories by my editor. They included travel, learning and teaching, social activities, physical challenges, spiritual endeavors. I can't come up with the other two at this moment, but the point is that I advise women in particular to keep a running list of things they want to try in their lifetime and
Right now.
to prioritize them
Right now.
and to realize that At age 50, we statistically speaking have lived more of our lives than we have ahead of us. So start getting out and doing those things. They don't have to be dramatic. Some of the things on my list are very small and some are huge, like moving to the Himalayas for a couple months to volunteer at a school without running water or electricity. And so I know not a lot of people want to do that. So I've also tried small things like walking more, walking over to the next town, getting to know your neighbors who you pass in your car if you're not outside and you don't
Right,
know them.
right.
So I've discovered so many things around me, and all of us can bloom where we are planted. All of us can reach out to a neighbor who doesn't have family or friends nearby. All of us can pick up trash when we're walking our dogs. There are so many ways to make this world better because we're here. So if you can't think of what you want to do with your time that you have left, pick up my book, look at
Pick
my
up your
website. Yeah, listen to my TEDx talk. I mean, or you talk it over with a friend, but I keep a running list in the notes function on my phone. When I hear something interesting that I want to look up or maybe try myself, I put it in my phone. And then I periodically look at it and decide, okay, which things can I do now? What do I need money for to do? And I keep it going, and that keeps me vital. I'm always thinking of new things and trying new things and encouraging my friends and family to join me if they want to. So that's, I think, the key to having an exciting, meaningful life that touches other people, that increases your self-esteem, and keeps you feeling vital in a world that often writes off women in middle
Yes.
age and beyond.
Totally. Well, you've been such an example, and our audience is right there in that sweet spot of wanting to pursue new endeavors and us being in support of those aspirations. So, Maria, excuse me, tell us how our audience can contact you.
Just go to my name, marialeonardolsen.com, and there are links to everything I've mentioned while here.
Perfect. Well, I so appreciate your time with us and your sharing your challenges, you're overcoming those challenges, and you're blossoming at these ages, all of these ages. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us on the We Can Do It Women show. Remember, I see you, I value you, and your greatest chapter is just beginning. If today's episode sparked something in you, I invite you to reach out to Maria, find out just a portion of her verve and her tenacity so that you too can add that as a tool in your toolbox to becoming all you were meant to be. And remember, until next time, I'm Debra Morrison, reminding you it's never too late to shine and pay attention to your money. It will surely pay you back. Thank you so much.